Good day, students. Today we're going to look at the solutions to numbers 2, E, and F, part of your practice with decimal problems, found on page 86 in chapter 5 of book 2. Now, it reads, solve each percent problem, round the final answer, the percent, to one decimal place. So we're looking for percents of something. So let's have a read of the first one. 30 is what percent of 80? Okay, now getting a feel for numbers as percents is important. So we know that half of it would be 50%, so 40 would equal 50% of 80, right? Wouldn't it? Half, we know half is another word for half is 50%, so 40 is half of 80, so 40 would be 50%. Now we have 30, so we know it's going to be less than 50%, right? If I had 80, 80 would be 100% of 80, right? When it's the same as itself. 80, that's 100%. That's the full amount, right? If I doubled 180 to 160, that would be 200% of 80, and so on. So it's a good idea to have some sense of numbers when you're dealing with percent. So I know 30 is somewhere below 50%, because 40 is 50%. It's half of 80. Okay? And half is the same as 50%. So how do we do these? Well, we're using the method the book teaches as well, and that's taking a percent statement like this and translating it right into an equation and then solving the equation. For example, if I see the number 30, that's all I write down, 30. Now is, in these particular percent problems, is always represented by an equal sign. Now what percent? Okay, we don't know what the percent is, so we'll just call that X. You don't have to call it X percent yet, just call it X. Of means multiply, and 80. So it's X times 80. Now we're used to putting the number in front when it's multiplied, so I don't like X80. All right, we normally say 80X. So because of that, I won't even, I'll turn that around right away. I'll write it like that the first time, but in the very next line I'll rewrite it as 80x. So 30 equals 80x. Now, we know how to solve for x when it's this format. When we're at this stage, we have a coefficient in front of a variable equal to a number. And every time we've had this type of problem, we've divided each side by that number to isolate the x. So I divide each side by 80 to get 30 over 80. Now change that into a decimal. I go to my calculator. 30 divided by 80, or 3 divided by 8, same, and I get 0.375. Now remember what we were asked. We weren't asked for the decimal. We were asked for the percent. So you have one last thing to do. We have the decimal. Now change that to a percent. How do you change from a percent to a decimal? Do you remember how to do that? We multiply by 100. Exactly. So anytime, right? Decimal to a percent. Sorry. Decimal to a percent. I got that backwards. Let me fix that. Okay, we said percent to decimal, then we would divide by 100. But we're going the other way, aren't we? So I wrote down the wrong one. We want to go from decimal to percent. And when you go decimal to a percent, you multiply by 100. Okay? So all we need to do now is take 0.375. We're going to multiply that by 100, and we're going to get 37.5%. So our answer is 37. Remember, it asks us for what percent. So our answer has to be a percent. So the answer here is 37.5%. Now, we can check it by multiplying that by 80. 30, right? 0.375, 37.5%, or 30.375 multiplied by 80 should give us 30, which it does, right? So you can check them by multiplying, doing the opposite. Multiply by the number to see what you get. So 37.5% is the answer for that one. Okay, let's look at the next one. Now, 92.8 is what percent of 25.3? Now, this number is larger than the one you're asked for over here. Because if I was doing 25.3, that would be 100% of 25.3. Right? They are the same number. 100% is the same number. If I multiply that by 2, which is 50.6, right, that would be 200% of 25.3. If I multiplied it by 3, that's what was 25.3 times 3. That's, oops, times 3, delete, enter. That's 75.9. So if I had 75.9, I know that would be 300% of 25.3, right? Because, and if let's go one more just to show you. I can estimate that answer. 25.3 times 4, okay, that's 102. 101.2 would be 400%. So I know my answer, which is 90. Look at the number I'm dealing with. I'm dealing with 92.8. So that comes in the middle of these two, doesn't it? So 92.8 is going to be between 300 and 400% of something. So again, I'm trying to give you some number sense of when you're dealing with percents, right? Remember, if it's something of itself, it's 100%. If it's double, it's 200%, right? And so on. So, all right, let's get rid of that and actually do the problem. So we know it's somewhere in the 300%. Now, again, if you're not sure, just do your idea of translating the question to the statement to an equation. So 92.8 becomes again equal sign what percent, we're just going to call that x, times 25.3. And again, I don't like that 25.3 right behind the x, so I'll write it as 25.3x. Okay, now what do? Same thing we've always done. We take that number and divide each side by the coefficient of x, so 25.3. So take 92.8 and divide by 25.3. This cancels, giving you a number of what? Let's head to our calculator. 92.8, and we're going to divide that by 25.3. Enter. Now it gives us 3.66798 ... I'm going to multiply by 100. Why am I doing that? To change it back to a percent. It's in decimal form now. So it's 366 point. Now we're asked to go to one decimal place in our instructions. So if I got 798 equals x, then if I asked to go one decimal place, I have to cut it off right here, right? Now that's 5 or greater, so the 7 goes up to an 8. So it's 8 is my answer. Percent. Now this is a percent here. I forgot to write in percent here. Okay, because when you multiply this by 100, you're changing it to percent, right? Same as I did over here. I multiplied this one by 100 to change it to percent. So alright, so at the very end, if you're asked for percent, don't forget to multiply your decimal by a percent. So your final answer for the next one is 366.8%. Okay, so there's a couple of examples, alright, of solving percent equations. That's it for now.